Welcome to the Museum of Aquarium and Pet History. It's our 2024 Super Zoo series, and today I'm going to interview Tom Edwards of Edwards Pet Supply, and we are in his hometown of Brigham, Utah. And if you look across the street at this famous movie theater, Capitol Theater, and you see that little building that says Saturday Matinees, that is the very first pet shop that him and his family opened in the 1960s. Okay, so we're in front of the Edwards Pet Shop that they opened in the 60s, and this is typical of some of the old family-run pet shops back then, 60 years ago. They were very small, they were very long, and a lot of times they were 2 and 3 floors, and the people lived on the second or the third floor, and the shop was on the first floor. So very, very cool that the building is still here. A lot of times these old shops are gone. They've demolished the building and put in condominiums or whatever. So I'm excited that we still have the original building. All right, so without further ado, let's go to Tom's office and let's talk about some of the memory lane kind of things that happened from the 60s onward in the pet industry. All right, we'll see you there. Okay, we are back and we are in Tom Edwards' office. I've known Tom probably 45 years, maybe longer. And him and his brother James had the largest pet supply business probably in this region, probably in the tri-states here. We are in Brigham, Utah. Beautiful little town, by the way. And we just saw Tom's family pet shop that he had before they got into distribution ship. But let's talk about, Tom, the early days. So let's talk about, like, how did you get into pets? Like, were your parents into pets?
Yes. Back in 1958, my brother started raising hamsters. And my dad was a school teacher down in the Ogden area.
Uh-huh.
And he would take hamsters to the pet stores. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there really wasn't a really good distributor in Utah. So the pet stores kept asking my dad, well, Frank, do you have any bird cages? Do you have any hamster cages? And my dad was pretty much a go-getter, and, he sourced out, lots of things.
What year was this?
That was 1958 when my brother started raising hamsters. And our distributorship really kind of started in, I would say, 61.
Yeah, because I remember getting, pallets of old stuff from you guys.
Yeah.
And there was stuff in there that I thought for sure was 50s, late 50s.
Yeah, late 50s.
So it was
there was Will Ness.
Yeah.
Some of those items.
Those wonderful Will Ness double tube heaters.
Yeah.
Oh God, great stuff. So I noticed, you brought some stuff here, and there's something that I have never seen before. So what is that?
This is an
ant satellite. Oh my God, a real live ant observatory with battery operated illumination. This is too funny. This is like the sea monkey thing, only for ants. And they would send you the ants through the mail. Is that it?
That I don't know, but I think this is a precursor for Uncle Milton's ant farms.
Yeah, was this 60s, 1960s?
Those were the 60s.
Oh, that's great. That is so cool. What else you got there?
These.
These are
aerated ornaments from Pinplex.
Wow, was this the pre-jewel box ornaments? Or
no, after.
After?
After.
But these are ones I've never seen, actually. That's pretty cool. Pinplex did lots of stuff. And these are aerated?
These are aerated.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh, yeah, here's the air tube right here.
Yeah, a couple of them don't have air tubes, but they are aerated.
We got a little T-Rex going on. We got the vegetarian one here. That's very cool. Very, very cool. Notice that they're going from you over to here to me.
Here's a classic.
That's the mouse.
That's the mouse.
Shaped like rawhide.
Shaped like rawhide.
And the interesting thing about this is from Miracle. Miracle was Axelrod's company, Herbert R. Axelrod.
Yeah.
So that's actually really cool.
Yeah. Talking about Herbert Axelrod, here's an old TFH price list.
Back when they had 50 million books. So you could see Axelrod was probably the most controversial figure in the pet industry, but he did publish an enormous amount of books. in the pet industry. Some of them excellent, some of them maybe not as excellent as they should be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, let me keep going here. So you bred hamsters. You started. When did you start Edwards again? Early 60s.
Probably 61-ish.
61-ish.
Yeah.
Was your dad involved in it then?
Oh yeah.
And when did your dad retire?
My dad passed away in 78.
So he worked all the way up to
He
78?
worked all the way up till 78.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you guys took it over, and how long did you run it until you sold it?
We ran it until 2007,
Uh-huh.
and then we sold it to a gentleman by the name of Richard Brown.
Right.
And then Richard, in turn, sold it to Bryce Wilson.
And it's called
Blue Sky Pet Supply.
Blue Sky. Yes, I remember them.
Yeah.
Would you say that Metaframe was one of your largest product lines?
At the beginning, I would say Metaframe was definitely one of our largest product lines.
Did you say it was the largest or not?
Could have been.
Did you sell metal frame aquariums?
We did.
What companies?
We sold Pimco, Sternco, Schmidt Aquarium,
Right.
Oscar Aquarium, Metaframe Aquariums.
So for those of you Metaframe fans out there, Sternco was owned by Hart's Mountain. That was Matt Stern, Leonard Stern, the Stern family. So Sternco was their brand of metal frame aquariums. Oscar, which was located in Berkeley, California, and I just found this out. We were having lunch, Tom and I found out that basically, because I didn't know this for sure, but Oscar manufactured their own metal frame aquariums in Berkeley, California. So you just told me that, right?
I did.
Yeah. So he went to the factory and he saw them making the metal frame aquariums. They had a huge, a vat of the tar that they heated up.
Well, they had a big flat metal area, and I would imagine it was a pile of about that big, and they would just scoop it, and it was hot. And they just scoop it and slide it in the frame, and they'd put the glass in, put the bottom in.
But it was post slate bottom, right?
Post slate bottom.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And once they had the frames made, the frames were all, I don't know what you would call it.
Oh, they're stainless steel.
They were all stainless steel,
Yeah.
but they used some kind of a machine that heat sealed.
That's right. And I can't remember what that technology is called,
Yeah.
but you're right, because that's how
Yeah.
they did stainless.
Yeah.
They had a heat method that they did to basically put the frames together.
Clamp the frames together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we had Metaframe, and you had Sternco, and you had Oscar, and you also had Pimco.
Pimco.
So tell me about Pimco. Pimco is more expensive than any of the other ones,
I don't know that we did lots with Pimco. Our primary two were Oscar and Metaframe.
Pimco made some unusual shapes, though.
They did.
And they eventually sold out to Metaframe years later. So, which is kind of interesting. But I've had people contact me, one of the family members from the Pimco factory actually, and talk to me about, the company just briefly. I'd love to learn more about it because it was in California, and they made like the highest quality metal frame tanks around. But they probably couldn't compete between Metaframe and Sternco and Oscar, which can really have lower prices. So,
and I don't know if there was any East Coast manufacturers of stainless steel aquariums.
I think there was. Well, Midwest, you had M&H in the Midwest. I was in Chicago. And I know there was some back in the Brooklyn, New York area back there. There was a couple manufacturers. And you had a lot of pet shops making metal frame tanks. Believe it or not, it used to be a cottage industry before the 60s. Mm-hmm. Metaframe started as Potts Aquarium. Potts Aquarium store made them in the back room. And they started the Metal Frame Aquarium Company, which became Metaframe. Yeah, nobody knows that. That seems to be history that's lost until the Willingers got a hold of Metaframe, and then they combined it with three companies. So it was Willness, Metaframe, and one other company I can't remember off the top of my head. But then it became this giant behemoth in the 60s, which we all remember. Yeah. So, which is kind of cool. So, so San Francisco Bay brand. And you never purchased Sanders brine shrimp, which was right from here?
We did. We did Sanders.
Okay.
We did a lot of their brine shrimp eggs.
All right.
But San Francisco Bay brand was the main line. Long Life had I think they had a brine shrimp at one time.
And that was bought out by Sternco.
Yes. I'm trying to think. I think Jungle had a frozen line at one time.
They did. I don't know if they had it when Red Nichols owned Jungle or it was after that.
I think it was after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about Anton Schmidt. You were talking to me a little bit about him.
Yeah, Anton was a real gentleman. He had his factory that they harvested brine shrimp here at the Great Salt Lake.
Uh-huh.
And Anton would come into town, and anytime Anton came into town, he'd always call us and say, "Hey, you guys want to go to lunch?" So we'd always go to lunch with Anton. And was a real gentleman. He was one of the founders of the pet industry, and he really took care of his distributors.
I remember seeing him, and he was really tall, right?
Anton was tall.
Yeah, and his son was really tall.
Andy was tall.
Andy was tall.
Yes.
And yeah, I loved Andy. He was just quite the gentleman. He used to come up to my shop riding on his motorcycle with his girlfriend. They'd all be decked out in leathers. It was really funny, and he just had such a great attitude about life.
Yeah.
He was always just optimistic and up, and he was a good guy. All right, so let's talk about Aquology, because that's one thing we talked about with Metaframe, because there's so many people interested in the Metaframe brand name. There's a Metaframe group on the internet. But I didn't know this, and we found out this recently in uncovering all this history, that Metaframe was bought out by Mattel, but Mattel didn't bankrupt it. Everybody thought Mattel bankrupted Metaframe, but they didn't. It got sold to Aquology, and then Aquology bankrupted it. So I remember the Aquology products. I never thought they were as big as Metaframe.
They weren't.
I know. So it's confusing to me that he had the money to buy such a large company. And then he got in financial trouble. And everyone that I've talked to about Aquology said, they mentioned the guy's name. I don't remember it, but he was just the nicest guy in the world and got over his head. He just bought something that was far too labor intensive and big, and he just couldn't handle it. But they had pretty good products, though.
Yeah, they had some products. They had a product that was a power filter.
Right.
That competed with the Dynaflow.
Didn't it compete with Supreme too? Did they have a power outside one? I thought they had a Aquology 1, Aquology 2, something like that.
Yeah, there was two or three different sizes of their filters.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, well, show me what else you got there. Let's take a look at it. All right. Oh, these are the most beautiful plants that you want in your aquarium. Hot pink, made by Halvin, which was a company that imported from Hong Kong. And if you find these old things and you see Hong Kong on the back and you're thinking, this is made in China. Well, it is made in China. But China at that time, well, it still is communist, but at that time you couldn't export from China until Nixon gave them the most favored nation status, whatever it was. And then you could export direct from China. But up until then, everything had to go from China to Hong Kong, had to be exported out of Hong Kong. So that's why some of these things they made in Hong Kong. But this is the 1960s, very kitsch, very interesting looking plant that you would put in your aquarium.
And there was a whole line of them, from small to big, tall ones. Lots of different colors. They did have greens, but they had a lot of just odd oranges and reds and purples.
And they sold, didn't they?
And they sold.
They were inexpensive. They were like $1 or $2 each.
Yeah.
It was not very much.
And then Metaframe came out with their aquascapers, who had a little different bottom
Right.
that snugged up to the gravel a little easier to keep them down. These, you had to pile a lot of gravel on them to keep them down.
And they put them in a beautiful display box.
And they put them in a really beautiful display box.
That was one of their big hits.
Yeah.
Is those plants. I wish you had one. We'd show it to them.
I don't have one to show. I think I gave them all to you.
You probably did. What else you got there?
There's a
Weighted
aluminum bowl.
back in the day when your dog would tip the bowl over, so somebody had the ingenious idea. So see, that's the pet industry. People come up with an idea that we always kick over the dog dish. It always is spilling water and food over the floor. Well, why don't we make a weighted one? So they made a weighted stainless steel dog dish.
And those were from Warren Products.
And they made a dog whistle, which we've had forever, for 100 years, that only the dog can hear it.
But,
Interesting.
But Warren had aquarium products as well as dog and cat products.
Wow. So we'll put some of this up on the site. What else you got? Is that for ferrets?
You could use this for ferrets.
Well, what was that made for?
It was made for a small animal.
Guinea pig?
Maybe.
Huh. It looks like a ferret basket.
But this one came I don't remember the exact company, but they had a nest of 7.
Oh.
And we also bought little flat cloth pillows that went in here
Uh-huh.
that had a zipper on them.
Okay.
So you could put your own material inside there that you wanted for your pet to lay on.
Oh, wow. That's miniature.
That's miniature.
Now, were these made in India or was this made in China?
That I don't know who. I may have some that still have a sticker on it that I would have to look and see.
I wish you had one with a little pillow in it. That'd be awesome. That'd be
I don't have
cool.
one with a pillow on it. Here's a manufacturer that manufactured called Colorcraft. Manufactured all kinds of leads.
Back in the day when your poodle had way too much bling on his collar
And rhinestones.
and rhinestones and everything.
And
I think people still love that.
Yep, they competed with PSI.
Okay. Pet Supply International.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is, the rhinestone gem collar is still around, but what's not around is the nail polish for poodles. I remember we used to sell tons of poodle nail polish, and dog groomers would have it, and you could pay extra to get your poodle's nails painted. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, in my little bag here, I've got some Ann Ardmore Hollywood dog togs. There's some.
So this is like outfits that they would wear.
These
Oh,
are like
yeah.
outfits.
Yeah. Ooh, and they've got the stuff in the back for dogs in heat.
Doggy britches.
Doggy britches, doggy boots, doggy pads, doggy leads. Hollywood dog togs. And basically they were in Hollywood. Crazy. I never knew this company existed in Hollywood because I honestly thought these doggy britches were Four Paws, but they're not. They're this
Well, Four Paws had some,
They did?
and they had some frilly ones. These were just mainly plastic. They came in black, brown, white, and silver,
Okay.
and red.
Man, I
And
can't believe
different
you still
sizes.
have all this paperwork. This is amazing. You are a pack rat like I am. That's a good thing because you saved it all and then we get it for the museum.
And this is a precursor to Doscacil, probably. It's a dog carrier.
That's a small one. Is that for a little cat?
That's
or
for small dog.
like a dwarf Yorkie,
Yeah, you zip it up.
or maybe your pet rabbit.
Could do.
Yeah.
And these came nested in, I think there was like 5. There was small, medium, large,
Uh-huh.
extra large.
That's in really good shape. And let's see who it's made by. Portapet by Globe Manufacturing, New York City. Wow. You look, the backside's clear, so you can be very stylish if you're a model walking down in Manhattan, and people can see your pet rabbit or your little frilly pet Yorkshire Terrier. This is very, very cool and in really good shape for how old it is. This is 60s, right?
60s.
Yeah. It's 60 years old. That's crazy.
And there's you.
It's like Christmas time for me, you know.
There's you a Living World
Aquarium hood.
wood tone aquarium hood.
When they did the wood tone, they thought that'd be the best thing since sliced bread. And I don't know, did it sell?
Yeah, it did.
Really?
I think wood tone sold a lot better than just black.
Really?
But you could put the wood tone hood on the black because it's black basically with a
Right.
wood tone front.
Wow. A lot of people that collect the old metal frame tanks are always looking for the hoods. That seems to be a big thing. Wow, it's heavy. This must be fluorescent.
It is a fluorescent one.
Yeah. Oh, 1978, Metaframe Corporation, a Mattel company. All rights reserved. And this is patented. So they patented some of the vented top, non-corrosive switch, adjustable cams, non-corrosive base, wood tone. They must have definitely patented a few deals on this thing. So very cool. Wood tone aquarium hood by Metaframe, by Living World actually, which was Metaframe when Mattel owned it.
Metaframe on it. You'll have to open that one.
Oh, RIC. Wow. Made in Hong Kong, RIC. I remember them from one of my interviews. And this is an enamel
It
dog
is.
bowl
It's an animal.
with an airbrush dogs on it. And then they put the enamel finish over the airbrush and redid it. It's really pretty. This is really old. And this was made in Hong Kong, so it was made in China and shipped out of Hong Kong in the 1960s,
Yeah.
before Nixon got into office, because Nixon, again, gave China most favored nation status, and then you could export directly out of China, not just out of Hong Kong. So very cool. I love these dogs, very stylized, with collars and Dachshund, Yorkie, all kinds of stuff. Very cool. I love that.
And here's one of the Metaframe promotional packets that they put out.
But that was to send to the distributor.
That was into the distributor, get you to buy more Metaframe.
Because at that time, Living World, which was Metaframe, which was Mattel, they were advertising in Life magazine. They were advertising everywhere. And didn't they have a commercial too, like on television? I think they had a commercial.
They could have.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
But you see, they have their metal frame aquariums on this one.
Back when they kept making the metal frame one while they were transitioning into glass,
To the glass.
because they wanted to have both markets. They didn't want to get rid of the metal frame market till they were sure it was dead and gone.
Yeah.
But they made the glass ones at the same time. That's interesting. Ben Riker Company, dog furnishings. Now, all these companies used to call dog products dog furnishings, which meant dog collars, dog leads, dog this, dog that. And wow, here's your old invoices from 1968. I can't believe you saved these. And most of these items are $2 and $3. That's crazy.
And some of them are $2 or $3 for a dozen.
That's insane. Yeah, and if you got an $11 item, it's a 10-pack, so they were $1 each. That's crazy. And then it's a whole catalog showing the 1960s dog collars, dog leashes, dog toys, latex, dog shipping crates. Wow. And of course, the dog stockings for Christmas time. One for your cat, one for your dog, because, just because you have stockings doesn't mean you need to exclude your cat or your dog.
And we made our own Christmas stockings.
Yeah.
We would buy the stockings.
Uh-huh.
We would buy all of the rawhide and rubber toys. I'd stuff them, staple the header on.
Wow.
We made our own dog stockings. We
That's
didn't
cool.
buy them, we made them. We could buy the stockings just bulk and buy
Oh.
the headers bulk.
That's amazing. How far did Edwards sell to? Did you sold into Colorado?
Yeah, we sold into Colorado, Nevada, Wyoming, Montana, and
Oh.
Idaho, and Utah.
Well, it's pretty far to go to Montana and Wyoming.
Well, mostly we shipped. Here's a company that sold Christmas cards.
Oh, Ernie's Creations. I have some of these cards. Poodle Doodles. So they were famous for pet Christmas cards, which were $1.50 a dozen. And then they sent you a sample of one that was actually a real Christmas card.
Yeah.
And they made it out to you, Edwards Pet Supply. That's very cool that you guys bought those. Actually, you know what? I know how come you bought those, because you sent me some. I actually have a few packages of them.
I did send you some.
Yeah.
And there's an old Cordon invoice. And here's an old Cordon price list.
So Cordon bought the rights to Tetra in the United States.
Yep.
And the person that bought it at Cordon was Murray Rakowitz. And I don't know if Murray is still alive or not, but the story goes he offered Tetra $25,000 for the American rights to Tetraman flake food. And they said, okay, that's fine, we'll do it. And then they just ignored him. They went radio silent. And so 6 months later, he comes back and he goes, all right, I'm going to offer $50,000 for the American rights to Tetraman flake food. And Tetra came back and said, okay, that's fine. We've got a deal. And again, it went radio silent for another 6 months, until finally Murray just got frustrated and said, this is my last offer. If you don't want it, that's fine, but I'll give you $100,000, and otherwise just go away and leave me alone. And so they came back and they said, okay, done deal. They flew out, signed a contract. He got the American rights to Tetra for $100,000, which he parlayed into a huge, huge company. That was probably the best decision he ever made. Cordon, he sold to Dr. Rofan, believe it or not, for I think the amount of $1 million. And the interesting thing too, when we talk about brine shrimp, and I'll have to do more research on this. The brine shrimp farms or the brine shrimp areas in San Francisco, where it's basically got San Francisco Bay brine shrimp because it occurs in San Francisco Bay. Everyone gives Anton Schmidt all the credit for that, but originally it was marketed by the San Francisco Aquarium Society. They had the rights through Steinhardt Aquarium to market all the brine shrimp, and they finally got tired of that. They didn't want to become a business and a nonprofit. So they turned it over to Murray Rakowitz, who I believe started the San Francisco Bay brine shrimp and then turned it over to Anton Schmidt. So that's the way that I've seen this thing go. I'll have to do a little more research, but that's how that went. And again, Murray saw the writing on the wall when he got Tetra. He's like, I don't need Cordon, I don't need San Francisco Bay. He spun both of those off and he kept Tetra, which he eventually sold to Warner Lambert.
And there's some price lists with the Tetra on it.
Oh yeah, Tetraman. Which is expensive, $255 for the smallest container. It wasn't cheap because it was German imported. Oh my God, Wonder Magnets. Those were huge. Those are really expensive because magnets are expensive. So that's very cool. Very, very cool.
Here's a company that did Kennel Comfort, Williams and Sons.
Yeah, I remember this. This was all the shampoos and whatnot.
And they had flea and tick products.
Wow. Which my friend says, don't get near those cans, Gary. They've got DDT or other stuff in it that you're going to have a lot of problems with. So it's always been problematic when I've got some of these old flea product cans, because if they do pop and spring a leak, you've got some issues. But this sold because back then, this was probably pre-flea collar.
It is.
When everybody used a spray or a dip. The groomers used to use this heavy duty dip to dip your dog, which was terrible. Not good for your dog or the groomer. And luckily those went away and they had these sprays, but then they came out with the flea collar. And then of course now it's the liquid you put on their neck, or it's the pill, it's all those kind of different things.
We were a big Wardley distributor.
Ooh,
We sold lots of Wardley stuff.
Wardley's got bought out by Hartz Mountain.
Yeah.
Wardley's always was trying to be the American Tetraman. They really wanted to compete against Tetraman, and to an extent they did an okay job. But when they got bought out by Hartz, they really just went into mass market. And where you find Wardley's today is at Target and other big mass market stores. I don't see much of them in pet shops anymore or fish stores. I mostly see them in big box stores. And that's because Hartz bought them out and that's where they wanted to put them.
There's just some more Metaframe.
Ooh, Dynaflow instructions. The filter everybody loves. It's the big Dynaflow. Dear Mr. Edwards, it's fall and a new sales year is underway for both of us. Since we have many plans, I thought I'd write to you about them and try to show you how we, at Metaframe, are working to make things even better than they have been. As you know, that the past year was the best in both our histories for almost any measurement, both in sales, profits, new product acceptance, best in general. In fact, it was so good, it led to some small problems we couldn't possibly have anticipated at the outset. You know them as well as I do. Because of the incredible demand and tremendous increase in sales, at times we just weren't able to deliver fast enough. But in a way, you were as much to blame for that as we were. Wow, he's blaming you. How were we to know that you would almost double your sales of Metaframe products in one short year? And it wasn't only last year, the growth has been happening for the past 4 years. Now, if we could only anticipate this sort of thing, we'd both be way ahead. But every time we asked you what you expected to do with us, your estimate and ours fell far short of actually what happened. That's a pretty amazing sales letter from Irving Gall.
Irving Gall.
You remember him?
Oh, I remember Irving.
Yeah.
I remember Mel Jester. I remember Tim Haskell.
All those guys.
Those guys.
They were famous. They were like
Yeah.
the rock star sales guys is what they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
back in the day. And this was 1969.
Yeah.
So, that's when I started working in pet shops, 1969. And I mean, I remember it was huge, especially for fish. huge for fish. And African cichlids started coming in, and that really changed everything. Man, you got all kinds of metaframe stuff. And you got it into Living World, 1973. Irving Gull is still with him.
Yep.
Crazy. Sternco, Leonard Stern, Max Stern, the famous Harts Mountain people. Again, a Deer Distributor letter. And this is their selling brine shrimp.
Yeah.
Did that come from here or did that come from San Francisco? Do you know if it came from the Great Lakes?
I don't know where it came from.
Or I should say, what do they call the lake here? They call it the Salt Lake. The Great Salt Lake.
So there's an invoice for some Miracle Aquarium products.
Oh, Miracle. And this was bought by Axelrod, right?
I believe it was.
Axelrod bought Miracle
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
That's another crazy, amazing company.
And Ad Life,
Ad Life, long gone,
long gone.
out of the Bronx, New York.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a lot of Ad Life products you sent me.
There's a company that's no longer in business.
Daylight Industries, never heard of them.
Yeah. Aquatrol.
Aquatrol, we bought out Aquatrol to make their blocks. It's sad because they made a lot of good medications, and then they said you can't make these medications anymore unless you get a minor use permit to make the medications, and the minor use permit is like incredibly ridiculous on how hard it is to get.
PSI, Pet Supply Imports. They did a lot of dog items.
A lot of baked dog bones. This was the land of baked dog bones here. I remember PSI. Yeah, that was a big company in the day.
Nectonics, that's the only piece I have from Nectonics, but they sent us some samples.
Wow.
And we bought Nectonics. We sold Nectonics. They had filters.
Nectonics was big in undergravel filters, but they were also one of the first companies to really get on the ground floor of marine fish products. Nectonics made a few items really towards marine aquariums. And I remember that, this is before mini reefs, before people kept coral in aquariums. I remember a metal frame tank, one of them we had at our store in '69, where the glass came above the frame because it was made specifically as a saltwater aquarium. So you wouldn't get that salt creep, outside on the metal.
General Cage Corp.
Didn't they turn into somebody else? I don't know. Oh, it has a whole 2 pages on how to housebreak your dog. And they have now a Varmint City. Interesting.
It was kind of like a habit trail.
Oh, really?
Metal.
Out of metal.
Out of metal.
Yeah, but the habit trail killed them all.
Habit trail killed them all.
Yeah. And then Hagen bought Habit Trail,
Yeah.
but they only had it for a few years. And then what they did is they made their own version called the OVI or something like that. I think it went by the initials OVI. Like I don't know what that stands for. Rotoplastics in Santa Ana. Oh, they made rotational molding. They made those plastic water bottles that you could fill up and your dog would have water for a while. Oh, and then here's one, a really big one. If you really want to have a farm and have some water for your dog or your cows, your goats, your sheep, whatever. Cool, very cool.
This is Twinco. And Twinco evolved into Lambert K.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Because I have a Twinco display box. Twinco was the company for dog brushes and dog things like that. That's interesting.
Dog brushes, choke chains.
This was in '65.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the display case they had that
Oh,
they
yeah.
gave out to stores?
Yeah.
I love it. It's one of my favorite items. And I actually went on eBay and I found all the different combs and brushes and stuck them in there.
Yeah,
Because it was
cool.
empty when I got it. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really, really interesting. This is the dog bed company that did the wicker dog beds.
dog and cat baskets, and they nested them. So they probably imported these either from China or from India, because I know they weren't made here in the U.S. But they were big back in the day. Oh, they were importers. Grand Basket Company, importers in Brooklyn, New York, which is crazy because if they imported them from China, that's a lot further than the West Coast to bring these in. Dog and cat baskets, every kind imaginable.
And my mother raised lots of dogs.
Oh, you told me about that.
She raised primarily Chihuahuas, but she did Cockers, Brittany Spaniels, Bedlington Terriers.
Those are rare. You don't even see Bedlington Terriers anymore. That's what looks like a sheared sheep, right?
Yeah.
With that
Yeah.
pointy, kind of a long, boxy, pointy nose.
Yeah, and here's some of her ribbons.
From the American Kennel Club?
Yeah, she won.
How
She won ribbon.
cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, we won't go through all of this. I'll let you take it, but there was lots of, these are all registered dogs. It'll tell you what their name was and who they bred them to.
Do you have any pictures in there?
I don't have any pictures of any of these dogs in here.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see the Bell Interior. Was that the most expensive dog she sold?
I think she may have sold some Old English sheepdogs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not very many. She's primarily into the smaller breeds,
Oh, okay.
the Chihuahuas. I'll leave all this with you, and you can look through there. Some of them have, pedigrees that are papers that are this long.
Mm-hmm.
Tells you all the dogs that were in that family.
So you really grew up in an animal family.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And your parents were both into animals?
Yeah.
And they didn't stop your hobby at all? They let you collect snakes or collect whatever you wanted?
Yeah.
Did you ever collect stuff here in Utah?
No, we didn't have that much stuff to collect here. Most of the stuff that we had, we bought.
Uh-huh.
Chameleons, alligators, monkeys, minor birds.
Now, one thing I didn't know about, James was Tom's brother for Edwards Pet Supply, and Tom did all the sales part, and James did all the ordering part. And I know that both of them had polio, which I thought that's amazing, that they overcame polio to do this business. And the reason that struck me is amazing because my father had polio. So I'm used to my father when I was growing up, he would always move his shoulder and stuff. In fact, the doctor told my mother when my father got diagnosed, your father's probably never going to walk. And my mother said, BS. I'm not raising these 4 boys by myself. And so she basically rehabilitated all his muscles and stuff. And then at lunch today, Tom was telling me where you were born.
I was born in Joinkrama, Nigeria, Africa, in 1952. I was born 2 days to the day that my brother was born. He was born in 1950,
Wow.
December 16th. So I was his birthday present. And 5 weeks later, both of us got polio. So we came back to the United States early in
Right.
53.
And your parents were missionaries. That's
My
why you were in
parents-
Nigeria.
My parents were missionaries. My mother was a medical doctor, and my dad was a Baptist preacher.
That's great. God, it's so interesting to know the whole story because I always was just really, I was kind of excited in a way that you had overcome such adversity, you and your brother, with polio and stuff, because my dad, again, had it. So I knew what it was all about. And, some of the people that get it really bad are in iron lungs.
Oh, yeah.
It's terrible.
Matter of fact, the last gentleman that was in iron lung just passed away recently.
I just saw that. I just
Yeah.
read that somewhere.
Yeah.
So I mean, polio is pretty much eradicated since Jonathan Salk did the vaccine, right?
Well, no, there's still polio in some of these third world countries.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Gates is big on trying to get into some of these countries to get polio vaccines out, but some of them won't let him in.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Man. All right. Is there anything else that we've missed at all? I know we missed a lot, but I think we covered quite a bit. We covered about your brother raising hamsters, and we went through a lot of the different product companies that were around. AGA All Glass, just so I can clarify, is that the same All Glass that was in the Midwest?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they were in Franklin, Wisconsin.
Right. Okay. Because they had a logo AGA, but I don't recognize it.
Yeah, when they first came out with their aquariums, they had a real skinny plastic rim on the top of them,
Uh-huh.
and they didn't stay on very well. But their tank sold,
Right.
and then they started to do a one-piece frame.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. We make terrariums at ZoomEd, and we used to, the bigger ones, we don't have a one piece because it's too expensive to do the tooling. But on all the smaller ones, we have one piece frame because it just makes total sense.
Yeah.
You can make the tanks much quicker and it's more stable, that kind of thing. So,
Mhm.
all right. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you taking this time to talk to us.
My pleasure.
It's been great. All right. Thank you so much, man.
Okay.